Coke, sodas, pops, colas, whatever you call them, where'd they come from? Well, it's a hell of a rabbit hole, so let's get into it. We're gonna get her started with Coke, or Coca-Cola, a syrup invented by John Pemberton, a Civil War veteran, chemist, and opium addict, which wasn't all that out of the ordinary. Keep in mind, a lot of veterans were given the drug at battlefield hospitals and took the addiction home with them. And it also didn't help that the market was full of tonics, the most well-known being laudanum, that contained morphine and other narcotics. Yeah, this is real. Asthma cigarettes were a thing, and so were cocaine drops. For children. Pemberton wanted to invent something that could curb his addiction as well as the addiction of many he saw around him, so he created a form of French wine, which was basically wine with cocaine in it, but in the 1880s, Georgia went dry, so he had to drop the alcohol. Cocaine was fine, just no alcohol. The two principal ingredients were coca leaves for flavoring and, well, cocaine, and cola nuts for flavoring and caffeine. By the way, they don't use cola nuts or cola nut extract much anymore. Instead, they use a caffeine extract left over from decaf coffee. See, decaf does have a use. So, coca leaves and cola nuts put together became Coca-Cola, as it was named by Frank Robinson, who also created the trademark font. And it started as a syrup which was accidentally mixed with carbonated water, and they decided to start selling it that way. In 1888, Pemberton died, and his estate sold the recipe to as a candler, who tweaked the formula in 1892, created the Coca-Cola Company. In 1903, the cocaine was taken out of Coke, slipping in right before the Pure Food Drug Act of 1906. They still use coca leaves for flavoring, and though the recipe is a closely guarded secret that's kept in this vault, it's widely believed that coca leaves are still being used. However, they are the leaves after the cocaine has been taken out for medical use by Stepan Company, a specialty chemical manufacturer and the only government-approved cocaine dealer in America that we know of. Coca-Cola was also sued in 1911 by the US government and forced to lower the amount of caffeine they put in it. At the time, the caffeine content was about double what it is today. The iconic Coke bottle is based on a sketch by Earl Dean for a bottle based on a cacao pod. This bottle didn't do well on the conveyor, so it was slimmed down into the version we're more familiar with. Also, Fanta was created in Nazi Germany due to an embargo keeping Coca-Cola Germany from importing Coca-Cola syrup, so they made a drink with what they had and named it Fanta because they had used their imaginations, or fantasy. It was discontinued after the war ended, but brought back in 1955. Pepsi, or Pepsi-Cola, was created in 1893 by Caleb Brad Hand at his New Bern, North Carolina drugstore soda fountain, and was originally called Brad's Drink. He named it Pepsi-Cola after pepsin, an enzyme that aids in digestion that the drink didn't include, and cola because he also used cola nuts. It didn't particularly help with stomach issues, but that doesn't mean it wasn't advertised as such. In 1923, Pepsi went bankrupt, was bought, went bankrupt again, and in 1931 was bought by Charles Guth. I would like to add that Coke had at least 3 chances to buy Pepsi and declined every time. Guth bought the company after Coke refused to give him the discounts he wanted for his soda fountains, and so he switched to Pepsi, eventually buying the company. At the time, he was also president of Lofts Candy Company, and he may have used their resources to change Pepsi's formula and keep it afloat until it became popular due to being sold in 12-ounce bottles instead of 6, but for the same price. But yeah, that's here nor there. So cola comes from the nut. Where does soda come from? Well, from drinks that contain sodium, typically sodium bicarbonate, or as most people know it, baking soda. Which brings us to
Yahoo! Mountain Dew!
That never gets old. Yep, Mountain Dew, named after a slang term for moonshine whiskey and created in the 1940s to be a mixer for, you guessed it, moonshine whiskey. Also, you just gotta see this.
Yahoo! Mountain Dew!
Come on now, that's something. And yet, Coke had the opportunity to buy Mountain Dew but chose not to, and they were bought by Pepsi in 1964. And now the age-old question, which came first, 7-Up or Sprite? Answer, 7-Up, which was created in 1929 and originally called bib-labeled lithiated lemon lime soda, and yes, as you can glean from that name, it contained lithium. Yes, that lithium. And they didn't take it out until 1948. Eventually, they just shortened it to 7-Up lithiated lemon soda, then just a 7-Up, and no, we don't know where the 7-Up name came from. Could have been a reference to 7 ingredients, or that it was put in 7-ounce bottles instead of 6, we're not sure. Sprite, originally called Fanta Clar Citron, or Clear Lemon Fanta, was developed by Coca-Cola in Western Germany in 1959 and was meant as a direct competitor to 7-Up. Root beer has been around in the Americas since before Columbus, a drink made from the root bark of the sassafras plant, but the modern version can be linked to Charles Hires, who developed a more modern version in 1875. It was named root beer rather than root tea in order to attract coal miners, by the way. And nowadays they use a sassafras flavoring rather than actual sassafras because its use was banned due to it being a carcinogen in 1977. Oh, the hits just keep on coming. RC Cola was created by Claude Hatcher in 1905 and came about because Coca-Cola refused to give him the discounts he wanted on their syrup for his soda found. Wait, seriously? To be fair, this was the first time they created a rival cola company, so they really didn't have much of an excuse when it came to Pepsi. Originally called Chero Cola, it was reworked and renamed Royal Crown Cola in 1934. By the way, RC was the first soda to be sold in cans in 1954 and introduced Diet Right, the first diet soda, in 1958, 24 years before the release of Diet Coke. Then we get to Dr. Pepper, whose creation predates Coke by a year. It was created by Charles Alderton at a soda fountain in Waco, Texas. It originally was just called a Waco, but the name was changed to Dr. Pepper by the store's owner. And the name makes sense when you think about it being advertised as a medicine that aided digestion and renewed vitality and vigor. And we don't know what the 23 ingredients are, but none of them are prune juice, we know that. And we also have Dr. Pepper's less highfalutin competitor, Mr. Pibb, and I'm calling it Mr. Pibb because Pibb Extra sounds fucking stupid. It was introduced by Coca-Cola in 1972 to obviously compete with Dr. Pepper. It was first tested in Waco and originally called Peppos, which changed after a lawsuit from Dr. Pepper. But the name is still based on the idea of title followed by name. Dr. Pepper, Mr. Pibb. This was done on purpose to link the two in people's minds. And I'm not even touching Dr. Thunder. And finally we get to ginger ale. Main ingredient ginger, not gingers. That's Soylent Cola.
How is it? It varies from person to person.
Ginger ale was originally developed as the golden style in Belfast in 1850, but the dry style we know and think of as ginger ale today was created by John MacLeod. In 1904, though it was known at that point as pale dry ginger ale, the name was changed in 1907 to Canada Dry Ginger Ale. The only ginger ale that matters, I should add, and yeah, I'll die on that hill. There's Canada Dry Ginger Ale, and then there's Caribou Piss masquerading as ginger ale. Oh, and White Coke was the first clear cola, which is just cola without the caramel coloring, and it was requested by the Soviet government in the 1940s, seeing as they had been introduced to Coke in World War II and they loved it, but they also saw it as a symbol of those big devil capitalist Americans and asked for a version that resembled vodka.
You serious, Clark?
I'm not making this up.